Hello, welcome to the channel. A couple of weeks ago, published a video on covering an AWS article about how they improved their DevOps practices by about 40%, reducing the headcount using AI. I have an admission to make on that one. I think the AI slop got me. Well, I don't think it did. And this has become clear now over the weeks. So what we're going to do is just take a little bit of a deep dive into this article, explore some of the things that come up in it and how it's obvious, how you can see and identify the AI slop going forward. So let's take a look.
Hello. So I got fooled by the AI content. Let's have a look at what I missed. So just for a bit of a brief recap, the original video was about an article about AWS and how they've improved their DevOps practices by as much as 40% using AI. And when we say 40%, we mean a 40% reduction in headcount around kind of DevOps engineers. And this surfaced around the time of quite a significant outage in AWS, and we'll touch a little bit on that later. Initially, we took it on face value, without verification. And admittedly, we should have done a better job really at the verification in the first place, but I think this still holds a valuable lesson for us. The video in question looked at two different articles, so we're going to leave the video one, because the first one around this particular issue, I think it's still a good learning lesson. And the second one is around, some practices on the ground from DevOps practitioners, and still holds a lot of weight. I think I'm going to leave that up and running. And it goes a long way in touching on critical thinking going forward on how we should treat what is more and more becoming AI generated content. So the bits that I missed, the source of the article, a little bit of a Google, after the article, turns up the same article under multiple authors. Quotes in there around, a leaked memo conveniently taken down. Yeah, that's convenient, isn't it? And again, the article appears, a lot of these articles appear, these same articles appear, around the time of the big outage for AWS. So there's a lot of publicity, a lot of kind of searches, there's a lot of traffic out there looking for this kind of thing. So this is put out there to try and capture some of that traffic and ultimately make a little bit of money off the use on it. So the source of it, we touched on it. The same article out there with multiple different author names. And if you search for the author, it's nowhere to be seen really. Particularly on LinkedIn, you'd expect an author to have quite a prolific profile on there and be sharing their articles on there as well. Again, touching on the sources, documents conveniently taken down, no verification possible there. Falsifiable claims, and no-name sources, anonymous insiders, leaked memos without attribution, no one's willing to go on record. Red flag there, classic pattern of unverifiable reporting. Timing, so we touched on it being around the time of a major AWS outage. It appears during a significant disruption, I think it was in East US 2 in the Virginia region. It's chasing engagement, so it's targeting people searching for news and updates, particularly around DevOps, which is always popular, particularly around outages times and stuff like that. They're the guys or the folks in the trenches, as we say. And it's riding a news cycle, so there's a lot of attention around outages, not just AWS and Cloudflare, couple of others around the same time, some models in Azure as well, not tied to any particular cloud provider, but and as a result, so there's a lot of attention and a lot of people searching for latest news on that. So a little bit on some of the detail in the article, that kind of further sign. So technical giveaways, some of the job titles used in it, and not job titles that AWS advertise or use. Yes, they might have these types of workers, but they don't have these particular titles. And some of the tools in there, and this is where it kind of comes to light really, is in the following article or work that I was looking to do around this article. To investigate some of the tools, and see if the claims stack up. and it became quite clear after the first couple of them that they didn't exist. They talk about CNCF tools. We have the large CNCF landscape, and whilst it's quite normal for tools to not to have heard of them before, but still be on the CNCF landscape because it's so big, and these just didn't exist. They weren't there. Configurations and that are as detailed in the article don't really make any sense. There's a lot of holes in them. We'll touch on them a little bit. And some of the names or the agents that they claim to have built or be available, don't actually exist. So job titles, DevOps workers, DevOps staff. AWS doesn't use these roles. On Hacker News, which is a really good source of kind of news and discussion and truth, in order to be believed. It was there was confirmations that there wasn't really any job cuts around the time. So they're saying, 40% job cuts. A lot of engineers commenting on posts there saying, look, they work at AWS and they're coming to work, and there's not any job cuts. There hasn't been any of them over the last couple of months. So touch again on the job titles. CNCF tools, yes. Look at the landscape. They don't exist. They're not on there. Love to implement some of them tools, but you can't implement it. It's not real. So configs that don't make no sense. So you see on the side here, there's a bit of the config from the document of the article, and some of the first things to point out is around a lot of the terminology in there is wrong. AI models GPT-5 at the time it didn't exist. I think when this was published, it's recently come out. But also AWS wouldn't be using a GPT OpenAI model. They'd be using their own. So they'd be using something like Bedrock or Q, not a competitors. Autopilot comes from the Google Kubernetes engine, not EKS. AWS uses things like Carpenter, HPA, and VPA, so horizontal and vertical pod autoscaler, KEDA. So it'd be one of them. AWS is particularly heavily invested in stuff around Carpenter. Predict CPU isn't real. It'd be using a Prometheus metrics, CloudWatch, or KEDA. Migrate pod, long-term knowledge. Don't get migrated and get evicted, rescheduled, and drained. It's simply wrong. If this is a complete Kubernetes structure, it's missing things like a kind, metadata, API version, something as it were. You just put something in there, that looks the part really. Agents without products, yes, agents exist as a concept. Now, I think that the actual tool that's quoted in the article that they've used that was their agent was actually a platform. So, you take this platform to then go and build on it and customize it around what you need. So certainly the use case that they were talking about would require a lot of particular customization. So it's not something you can just take and drop into some of the solution off the shelf agent that's there and ready to go. How it gets created now, and a little bit on why. So the article was published on Medium. Medium is, a publishing platform, and it incentivizes engagement, not accuracy. It's also interesting to note that the article, since kind of producing the video about it, has got a warning on it. So if you go to the article now, it says, this is currently under investigation. But notice that warning's been on there a good couple of weeks. They're not taking it down, not taking the article down just yet. And I'll put a link to the article in the description as well. So the AI generates plausible content. Sounds technical, looks convincing, can give it a hefty weight of content that certainly looks the part, and almost certainly is kind of SEO friendly. A lot of good relevant content there that can be very, very easily optimized to kind of to attract traffic. Clickbait headlines, drive shares. Admittedly, no, I'm a victim of this really. I fell for this one hook, line and sinker. I saw the headline, liked it, thought it was really interesting, made a video about it, believed it. On investigation, it should have come right at the beginning, to be fair. Struggled a little bit. So did its clickbait job there. Fear-based content wins, so the kind of scaremongering and 40% of AWS staff losing the job draws attention, and there's copies of the article everywhere as well. So once it's out there, it's quite easy to find the same article under several different authors, and it's quite clearly content kind of farming and publishing, some mass publishing of articles just to generate traffic and trying to attract revenue from things like advertising and clicks from platforms like Medium, but also a lot of other different platforms as well. Now, how to spot it? So some of the things are, check the source. LinkedIn. So if anyone's writing genuine articles, they are going to be listed on the likes of LinkedIn. Certainly with profiles around something technical or something around journalism, certainly in the industry. And the most likely to, if they're genuine and real and they produce the article, they're going to be sharing it themselves. I certainly would share articles. Look for name sources in there. Does the article or does any of the articles just simply quote insiders or leak memos or anonymous sources? That's kind of another giveaway. Verify the technical claims in there. Any configs in there, check. Certainly see it in the open source world, CNCF landscape. Check that they exist. Check it on GitHub. If they're talking about, lesser known packages available on GitHub, go and track them down beforehand. And admittedly, it's kind of what I should have done a little bit more in advance. But I think this is a good lesson anyway. So corroboration. So a little bit of digging after the fact. Identified a couple of different posts on things like Hacker News, Reddit, particularly the Hacker News site was very good with some comments with people, again, saying they work at AWS and things not appearing to be the case. What was mentioned in the article. When does the article come out? Yes, it's around the time of a large, significant AWS outage. It's also in a kind of crossing path of the AWS outage, but this whole AI kind of boom that we're in at the moment. Particularly a lot of work around agents. So it's a good combination of an AWS outage, AI, how it's going to remove everybody from their jobs, and some of the tools and technologies. So it kind of looks the part, but that's literally all it does really. And again, check for republication of the same article. Simple things like just googling the title, for example, of some of the key things in there. It doesn't take long to surface more of the same articles really, just republished on other platforms. So whether it's on Medium under other names of accounts, or whether it's other platforms, it's quite common for the same article. Or genuine articles to be published across multiple different forms. It's more common as well, for kind of these content farming articles to be generated, published across multiple sites to a much higher degree as well. What does this mean for us as DevOps, platform engineering staff? So AI is changing how we work. There's no debating that. We cannot get away from it. We don't need fake articles to prove that. We can see this, all of the time now. The real transformation is enough. There's a little bit more to it than what this article talks about. It's simply a case of, it's not just a case of reducing headcount, so 40% layoff. Yes, it's supporting roles. It's not directly replacing them. It may do, in future. I'm sure certainly over this year, it's going to be a really big year for things like, AI agents, particularly, in engineering. But I don't think it's quite there yet. It's not far off. The other one is, it's important for practitioners out there to share their experiences. We're starting to see, we've seen a lot of really positive news about things around how it's improved and changed people's roles and changed what they're able to deliver. It's interesting to see at the moment around starting to surface out some of the people's experiences about maybe where it's fallen a little bit short. It's starting to come out now, but it's certainly more positive. So it's really important that we share and talk about people's experiences. My own experience, yes, it genuinely helps my work. When used correctly and verified, making a big difference into my role, and that's why I kind of started this channel and getting these videos out there just to share some of the experience on the ground. Really. Key messages, again, top of the list there. It's okay to be wrong. That's why we're producing this video. Yes, it's a video about me, about how one of my previous videos weren't quite correctly researched, and that's a lesson for me. But that's okay. I'm more than happy to admit that critical thinking matters. Especially with the amount of AI generated content that's out there. And again, some of the information source that you're reading, treat the rigor and the detail and the investigation as you do your infrastructure and your platforms and your tools that you're working over. And transparency over perfection. Yes, lessons learned there around kind of AI Slop, how it got me. But the original video stays up, for that reason really, and I'll hold my hands up to that. So hopefully that's been a good summary for you, or how to kind of spot some of the telltale signs of AI slop out there. But thanks for getting this far. If you made it this far, please like and subscribe to the channel. This is a growing channel. I'm going to try and get number of increasing number of videos out in the new year. So thanks very much for watching this far, and speak to you again soon.